So I'll continue the discussion on endophthalmitis, except that it's going to be about post-traumatic endophthalmitis. This will be my session out.
Slide.
So this will be my session outline, and we'll try to cover all of these as soon as possible. So as we know that endophthalmitis is a dreaded and a sight-threatening complication. When we talk about traumatic endophthalmitis, it's more common with open globe injuries, or I can say it's exclusively present with open globe injuries, in which penetrating injuries are which have only a single wound, whereas a perforating injury would have an exit and as well as an entry wound. It corresponds to 30% of all cases of endophthalmitis, and the incidence differs if there is presence of an intraocular foreign body, with reports up to 50% more. And commonly at-risk population are young males who work in industries. So the risk factors are intraocular foreign bodies with organic material injury, much more commonly associated with endophthalmitis as compared to metallic foreign bodies. We say that metallic foreign bodies, because of the velocity, get sterilized when they enter the eye. Versus the nature of trauma. So trauma in a rural setting is much more commonly associated with organic material trauma, so hence it would have a higher risk of endophthalmitis. Then the wound characteristics. A dirty wound, a wound which has dirt particles or material in it, would have a higher risk of endophthalmitis. Similarly, any uveal tissue prolapse would be associated with a higher risk. And delay in primary repair. Any delay more than 24 hours in these patients, they are at higher risk of developing endophthalmitis despite repair at that time. And associated lens rupture. So in case the lens is ruptured, the compartmentalization of the eye is lost, the anterior segment and the posterior segment, the difference between them is lost, or the barrier between them is lost. Then the factors which will affect the final visual acuity would be delay in treatment, a concomitant retinal detachment, the virulence of the organism. So any organism such as Bacillus cereus, which is commonly associated with intraocular foreign bodies, would have a much worse prognosis as compared to Staphylococcus or Streptococcus, as well as the wound characteristic. Any wound that is going or involving zone 2 and zone 3 or involving corneoscleral part would have a much worse prognosis, and any trauma in which an intraocular foreign body is present would have a much worse visual prognosis. So just a short note on pediatric post-traumatic endophthalmitis. These patients present to us late. They are not able to convey their symptoms and signs. They are not able to pinpoint the exact time of their trauma, as well as a difference in the microorganisms is noted. In children, Streptococcus is much more common, whereas in adults, we commonly say Staphylococcus and Bacillus. So how do we prevent post-traumatic endophs? As soon as a patient presents to you, we do a prompt primary repair. Our aim is within 24 hours the patient is repaired from the time of trauma, not from the time of presentation to us. We characterize the wound and the type of injury. We evaluate for an intraocular foreign body. So there's a small catch over here. At the time of an open globe injury, performing a USG might be difficult. You can go ahead, do an X-ray, and then do it in the post-operative period to rule out any intraocular foreign body. Then consider systemic or prophylactic antibiotics, usually oral. So EVS has shown previously that systemic antibiotics are not helpful, but EVS used those antibiotics which did not have good bioavailability or intraocular penetration. We have newer generation, 4th generation fluoroquinolones like Ciprobit, which have good ocular bioavailability, so we can use them. Then consider intravitreal antibiotics as prophylaxis, but you need to rule out choroidal detachment, suprachoroidal hemorrhage, and retinal detachment. You consider intravitreal antibiotics at any point when there is a delay in repair more than 24 hours, if it's a dirty wound, if it's associated with a lens rupture, or if there is presence of intraocular foreign body. So these are the commonly used antibiotics that we use. A new addition to this would be caspofungin, which is again at the dose of 50 micrograms per 0.1 ml for fungal endophthalmitis. So how do we manage these patients? So first and foremost, we need to have an accurate diagnosis. We come to the diagnosis with a good history, clinical examination, and any ancillary test in the form of X-rays or USG. Then the second foremost important thing is the antibiotic therapy. At the time of presentation, usually we begin with a broad spectrum antibiotic, but we need a vitreous culture or vitreous biopsy to modify our further line of treatment and then decide based on the culture reports on the sensitivity and specificity of the organism. At times, a lot of our samples come out to be sterile despite our best efforts. So again, we go on with broad spectrum antibiotics in that case. So in the setting of a traumatic endophthalmitis without any intraocular foreign body, do a primary repair, do a vitreous biopsy or a tap, then you give an intravitreal antibiotic, broad spectrum. Watch the patient for 24 to 48 hours, the upper limit being 48 hours. If there is improvement in media clarity, you can repeat another dose of intravitreal antibiotic and follow up the patient. If there is no improvement at 24 or 48 hours, go ahead and do a PPV. No point in waiting in these patients. So this is a case in which there was a small open globe injury. Size was less than 3 millimeters right at the limbus over here. So in such small wounds, we can do a repair as well as a primary vitrectomy in the same sitting, considering you have the setup for it. So because it was a young patient, we went ahead and did a pars plana lensectomy, did vitreous debulking, did a fluid air exchange, and followed by intravitreal antibiotics. The second case is a patient with a large intraocular foreign body. Again, the open globe injury has been repaired. The inflammatory membrane has been removed. We remove a little bit of the lens material such that the intraocular foreign body is visualized. We identify it, enlarge the incision, remove the intraocular foreign body, repair that area, go ahead with vitreous debulking, followed by a fluid air exchange. So some important points for vitrectomy in these patients is that you need to have a safe vitrectomy. What is a safe vitrectomy? So EVS has told us that around 50% of the vitreous needs to be removed. We can follow that, although EVS removed or excluded post-traumatic patients, but we can use them as general guidelines in terms of vitrectomy, as well as ensure that we do not attempt a PVD. These patients are prone to develop retinal necrosis or atrophic breaks, or when you're inducing a PVD, a retinal tear may form. As well as keep your tolerance for insertion of silicone oil on the lower side. Any doubt, go ahead, put a silicone oil. It compartmentalizes the eye, it acts as an antibiotic depot, it basically is bacteriostatic, and it has a lot of advantages in case an atrophic break has formed or you have missed a break. So my last case is a patient with a large intraocular foreign body in the anterior segment. The patient was really lucky that the lens was untouched. There was no anterior capsule rupture or anything. We went ahead, we removed the intraocular foreign body from the anterior segment, went ahead and did a primary repair, followed by membrane clearance and debulking. So my take-home message is go ahead with a prompt repair, less than 24 hours of injury. Consider systemic antibiotics in the form of oral antibiotics, more commonly fluoroquinolones, fourth generation like Ciprobid or Moxiflox. Consider prophylactic antibiotics in special situations in which the injury is long-standing, dirty wound, lens rupture, associated intraocular foreign body. And vitreous tap or biopsy should be done to ensure that you can adjust your antibiotic according to the culture and sensitivity. Thank you so much.
Presentation. Just very छोटी-छोटी दो tips दे रहा हूँ मैडम, especially for postgraduates. In such cases of traumatic endophthalmitis, because generally they are associated with ruptured globe, open globe injuries. Check for two things: tetanus profile and look for sympathetic ophthalmitis of the other eye. हम लोग miss कर जाते हैं, क्योंकि same चीज़ है, pathology is same. Rupture to the one eye, trauma to the choroidal tissues and all. हम लोग इतने ज़्यादा engross हो जाते हैं infection में कि other eye को नहीं देखते हैं. So that's small tips I wanted to share. But good presentation.
Thank you.